The views and opinions expressed on the cap are those of the hosts. They do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of OldMilk Media. Any opinions stated aren't intended to offend anyone. All right, welcome back to the Cap Podcast. This is episode 415. I am Nate Sparrow. That's Taylor McLeod. Taylor, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I just had a phenomenal breakfast burrito, unreal. So
give me the order. What's in there?
what do we do? We did roast. I don't I don't put bacon or anything in the breakfast burrito. I'd rather it just be so I did egg, I did Spanish rice, I did roasted potato, I did cheddar, pico de gallo, and then avocado.
Oh, honestly, with that type of spread, I'm surprised that you aren't sleeping right now.
I could be. I got my coffee though, so we're all
okay.
right.
Perfect.
Yeah,
perfect.
We're surviving.
All right. How do you? Okay, so first of all, we have to rejoice because the Braves have been eliminated from postseason contention.
I'm not rejoicing about that.
I'm rejoicing about it. It's a lesser of two evils, and now we got to get rid of the other evil, the Phillies.
Yeah, it kind of sucks. So the two teams that I was relatively rooting for, not hard, but I wanted the Orioles at least to make a little noise. They didn't. Mm-hmm. And then Minnesota, I was definitely pulling for the Twins. And the Twins, made one game exciting, but of the four teams left, I'm leaning Diamondbacks just because that's the, I guess that's the safest one. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? As a neutral fan, to pick the underdog is the safest one. But at the same time, they haven't lost a playoff game, have they?
No, they haven't.
Yeah. So right. So they just, everyone. It kind of feels like the Phillies are going to roll them a little bit, but they just swept the Dodgers. They just killed the Dodgers.
I think something needs to be said for how rhythmic of a game baseball is. And now that all the teams that had, well, except for the Astros, but the Astros are created in a lab somewhere and they're probably cheating, if we're being honest. But that being said, I think it's something to be said about how rhythmic of a game baseball is, and that week off, how do you keep your number one or number two team engaged, knowing that they're going to play a team in a week that they know that they're better than, that they've proven that they're better than over the course of 162 games. I feel like that's a challenge for managers. Also, the Dodgers just had no pitching at all. I think they had a combined 5 innings in 3 games from starters. You're just not going to win that way.
And there's a part of it where they don't get any. It's tough to give them excuses, right? Just because they're the Dodgers, they win 100 games every year, and it feels like they have superstars everywhere, but they really don't. This team is not like previous Dodger teams where it's really, really loaded. You have Mookie and Freddie to start the lineup, but when you look at their pitching this year, I mean, they lost Gonsolin, they lost May, they lost Walker Buehler was out for the whole season. Mm-hmm. So you're going into the playoffs with Kershaw who has his problems.
Urias does the unspeakable and probably is never going to play again.
Right. And he shouldn't, but he's gone too. So that's another loss. And then, so you go into the playoffs with your top 3 being Kershaw, who struggled in the playoffs. And he's also just older. It's not dominant Kershaw, rookie Bobby Miller, and then Lance Lynn. Those are your 3 arms. So it's it is a little different of a situation than it seemed, where it's the Dodgers are this but again, they don't really it's tough to give them a pass on anything because they're the Dodgers.
What I will say is, going into the season, they did say that this was more of a reset year, and them winning 100 games is purely just off the strength of how good Mookie and Freddie have been.
1,000%.
And additionally, by that logic, they overachieved this year. But I do expect them to get Ohtani and some pitching next year and actually make a run for the World Series. The only thing is Dave Roberts, many managers, had even Brian Snitker has to figure out, how do you keep this powerhouse team engaged over that week where they're not going to play?
Right. And I think that's where the Astros going to the ALCS every single season and competing for the World Series every single season in a much more, I don't know how to put it, but like they just do their thing, right?
Mhm.
It feels a little bit like Spursy or Patriotsy at this point. You know what I mean? Like where it's just like they just keep their, I mean, because with like a week left in the season, they were in danger of not making the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so you have that, but I don't know. I'm excited for the championship series. I think the Texas ALCS is going to be cool.
Mhm.
And then I mean Philly Arizona is kind of a random matchup, but the crowd has been so good there. I mean, I don't want them to win, but
Mhm.
I've liked Harper for a long time. So if they do end up, making a run, they have their top two pitchers are just so strong. Wheeler
Yeah.
and Nola go out there and just dominate,
Wheeler had
right? And
like
it's like,
6 strikeouts for his first 6 outs, I think, in like game
right.
2 or game 1, something
Yeah.
like
And
that.
so you know that they're gonna show up. So
Yeah.
you know that. But
The
hey,
only silver lining I can see in the Phillies winning a World Series, on the strength of Bryce Harper, is that maybe Brian Cashman actually gets fired after all for not even
yeah,
entertaining getting Bryce Harper, which makes no
I
sense because
know.
Bryce Harper's a top 5 face in the league, maybe top 3.
Yeah. Top, I mean, yeah, probably top three with Otani and Judge, and then
Hmm.
Harper,
Hmm.
and then like that whole. We don't have to get super into it because that would take up our whole recording time. But it's, I think his reputation was much worse than his actual ability as a player at that point, and people like looked at him as like this, like, but it's like he had an MVP at that point. He was like, I, I
I
don't
feel
know.
like they
He's
didn't
one of
like
the,
him because he broke all the unwritten rules. And the Yankees are still in 2023 on that bullshit of like playing like it's the 1990s. And as we have seen over and over and over and over and over again, that's not going to win a ring in the 2010s and now in the 2020s.
yeah. I don't know. It'll be an interesting offseason for sure. I mean, you have two historic franchises in the Red Sox and Yankees that had terrible seasons this year.
Mm-hmm.
And usually when those two franchises get embarrassed, they throw a lot of money around. So we'll see. But I mean, the Yankees have less financial flexibility than the Red Sox just because they have been throwing the money around still,
Mm-hmm.
like the Rodon contract and all that. But I don't know. It's
I
going to be a
mean,
good championship series, and I think it'll
it
be a
is.
good World Series.
I hope so too. I do need the Rangers to win in the World Series so I can actually enjoy the World Series and not
Yeah.
be terrorized by the threat of a Houston Astros World Series win again. Even though besides Altuve, I like the rest of the team. But they're still cheaters. That being said, this is the Cat Podcast, episode 415. I am once again your host, Nate Sperlin. That is Taylor McLeod. It's your weekly tour through hip hop. Thank you for watching on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and more. Do us a favor, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Old Milk Media, and check out all the Old Milk content on oldmilk.co. That being said, Taylor, let's get right into it. Let's talk about our power rankings for the last week. Taylor, what have you been listening to?
So I've been listening to Shades of Blue by Madlib. I've been doing a lot of instrumental albums lately. So Shades of Blue by Madlib, Mad Villainy by Madlib and MF Doom, and then Faith is a Rock by Alchemist, Mike, and Wiki.
Got you. For me, I have 3 of the 4 albums that I'm considering for album of the year. Number 3, I have A Gift and a Curse by Gunna. Number 2, I have Nostalgia by Rod Wave, and number 1, I have For All the Dogs, by Drake. I do have one thing that I wanted to say that I didn't get a chance to say last week. Adonis's verse. Don't talk to my man like that. I like it when you like it. My man. I had to explain to one of my coworkers like what Adonis was talking about because they were like, what is he even talking about? Like, who wrote that for him? And I was like, well, first of all, he didn't appreciate that his man was being talked to in the way that he was. And then he was saying that he likes it when you like it. And then he was bigging up his man.
Yeah,
That I'm just like, come on, like as far as a verse from a 5-year-old or a then 5-year-old goes, pretty solid. Better than most of the double XL freshman freestyles that we've heard this year. So moving on to verses, we have 2 offset projects. We have Without Warning and we have Father of Four. Taylor, which one do you prefer?
I feel bad for Father of Four because this just isn't a fair fight. And usually I try to pick the one that I think you're not gonna pick, so we have a balanced argument. But This one isn't close. It's Without Warning. I mean, from the cover to the songs to the artist to the production, like everything about that to the year it came out, because that was like still in a little window where it felt like projects mattered a little more than they do today. And I just remember when that came out, like in 2017, and like that was Migos was at the very top of their like game. 21 Savage, like he was at the same place, and then Metro Boomin was, yeah, he's been on the run since he came out, really, but that was also kind of when like, so you just had like three superheroes coming together. So it's Without Warning, and it's not really close.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's Without Warning. I think Without Warning is probably, besides Without Warning, is probably the best collab album of the 2010s besides Watch the Throne. Like, and I think it's up there with that. Just like understanding, like you said, you have Offset, who's a part of one of the biggest groups of all time. You have Metro, who's definitely the best producer of that era, and you could argue one of the best producers of all time. And then you have 21 Savage, who is, and honestly, it's the fact that I think that Without Warning kind of saved 21 Savage for from the aspect of the solo album that he dropped that year, which was Issa, wasn't really as great of an album as the other ones that we've seen in his discography. So having Without Warning in 2017 dropping, or 20, I think it was 2017. It was 2017. Having Without Warning dropping on 2017 and basically washing off Issa, I think that's really important for 21 Savage's career. It also showed that he was able to be more flexible and work with other artists and stuff like that. So I think that album holds significance for all three of their careers. That being said, on the other side of this commercial break, we will be talking about Set It Off by Offset. So please don't turn this off. Yo, this Young Lil album is the best of all time. I can't wait to talk to Taylor about it, man. This is gonna be the greatest thing ever. Yo, what's good, Taylor? How you doing?
I hate this album.
Do you have to clean your ears first?
My
What's wrong with you?
girlfriend said everything I play in the car scares her. She said I lost all my taste,
Clearly.
and I need your help.
Well, what am I supposed to do about it? You want me to order you Q-tips?
No, I need hoodies. I need a beanie. I need t-shirts. I need you to help.
All right, I'll see what I can do. I can send you this beanie, but everything else we're gonna have to see. Introducing the 2023 OldMilk Collection. This collection, comprised of hoodies, t-shirts, beanies, and stickers designed by Nate Sperlin, is guaranteed to show everyone your superior style and taste. Man, I hope Taylor doesn't scare the viewers with that bummy outfit. Oh, no bummy outfit today. Look at that.
No, I'm much better. The album sounded better. Everything is better. All thanks to OldMilk.
Rush over to oldmilk.co to shop the 2023 OldMilk Collection today. All right, welcome back to the Cat Podcast. Once again, this is episode 415, and on this episode, we will be talking about Set It Off by Offset, 21 tracks, 1 hour long, featuring Travis Scott, Don Toliver, Future, Cardi B twice, Mango Fu, Lotto, Young Nudie, and Chloe. Join the conversation in the comments below. That being said, Taylor, what did you think about Set It Off?
So I had to have a moment of truth with myself and just understand that the 20-track album it just is what it is at this point. Like I still feel the same. I think it's way too long, and I think it's the case here, but it is what it is. So I'm gonna try to not have that be my first comment on every single project that we listen to for 2 years at this point. I told you this right before we got on. I think the bones of this project are incredible. I think the bones of this project, the foundation of it is so good. I think that Offset made a lot of impressive choices on this project, whether it's beat selection, how he used the beat to his advantage, how he, changed up his flow, his voice, his cadence to fit certain instrumentals was impressive. I think the featured artists on this project are impressive. I think there is room for a lot more features, and I'm glad he didn't fill up that space, because when there's a solo album, I want a solo album. I think there's certain songs that probably don't need to be here, but again, that feeds into what I led with. It just is what it is. We're getting 20-song albums no matter what from probably every artist at this point, every artist of a certain cachet, because that is a surefire way to get those stream numbers up and get the money that you need. And I understand that. So that's how I feel. My biggest sentiment about this album is that the foundation is really good. The bones of this project. It's like when people look at a house, right? And it's a little you can't tell what the deal is, and then you have someone go through it and you're like, all right, the bones of this house are like great. You know what I mean? Like it's like structurally sound. And yeah, so that's how I feel like from the beginning, is that it's very solid. There's points where I maybe would have made different decisions just in terms of including some stuff, but overall I think it's very solid.
Yeah. Cover art, first of all, is amazing. Leading everything that Offset has done up to the release of this album has been perfect. I
Yeah.
only have one critique. Um, and that is I feel like the stream that he did with Kai Cenat about 2-3 weeks ago at this point should have been done during this week. Just like leading up to the album, that gives him more momentum and more ears ready to listen to the Offset album. That's really my only critique. But even besides that, like the memes that came out of the Kai Cenat stream, just everything together, just like really, really good job from Offset putting together a quality rollout that we really don't even see rollouts like that anymore. So to see someone have a quality rollout is very impressive in 2023. That being said, I think the goal of this album is for Offset to establish himself once again as a solo artist. I think that this album gets that job done, but I think it could be more efficient. I like how Offset is using the different flows, different cadences. He also has like different song constructions, really showing that versatility, which is the main reason why I believe that he's the best out of the three Migos. Another thing that's also apparent based off of Offset's beat selection is how much of a hip hop historian he is. There's a lot
Yes.
of referencing of tracks that are hits from like 20, 30 years ago. And to see him kind of recycle that and still put his own style on it is very impressive to me. The one thing I do want to say though is I feel like the one thing that I think was lacking here were some of the hooks. I feel like it was just him repeating himself over and over and over again. And like I think Offset, like all three Migos, have the potential to be more catchy than what Offset is showing here. So that's really my first critique of it. But overall, it was a quality album. I think that there's too much fat on it, but I still think that I don't think it's a tough listen. I think it's a really
No.
good listen. It's a pleasant listen.
Yeah, not at all. I really like what you said, and I agree with the point about this album. I mean, from the cover art, like all the homage to Michael Jackson, which he like Offset's been doing that for a long time at this point. But this is like this whole project is such like a window into Offset as a music fan. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? As a student of music, and not just hip hop, like across genres. Like the song with Chloe, the song with what I mean. Like it's a he just shows like a great understanding of a lot of different pockets of music on this project, and like some of the 808 patterns, some of the bass lines that are incorporated on this album. There's like little throwbacks to like some like 80s ish like Miami sounds. There's like we have like some real like Atlanta stuff, but there's also some like real soul samples that slow it down. So it's just, and none of it feels forced, and it doesn't feel like it's a bunch of random sounds thrown together. And I think it's important when an artist can do that, where it's like it's an understanding of all these sounds. It's not like, all right, I have this to check off this box and this to check off that box. It's like, no, I can do a song that's more introspective with a soul sample, and then turn around and have like the 808s, like like blowing out your headphone, and keep that pattern, but then also have like an R&B-ish song with Chloe. And I think that obviously like Offset and Cardi B being together lends itself to like good music. You know what I mean? Because they're together. Like they spend so much. You can tell when they make these songs together that like, yeah, they made them together. It's not like, and obviously, they are together. So like that shows through. And I'm glad that he has two Cardi B features. I thought the song with Lotto was good. The song with Chloe, I've mentioned it, 3 times at this point, is good. And yeah, so I think that's a great point that you made about this showing him as a student of the game, and just really choosing like a variety of instrumentals to rap on that they feel like good going together. There
Yeah.
isn't It's not so much like to call back to For All the Dogs. I think some of the songs on there, it's like it can be a little like whiplashy when it's like, all right, here's this R&B like crooning song, but then here's this like super hard trap beat, but then here's this like soul sample, and then here's this other like trap, and then like I don't like that like choppiness on a project. And so even though I agree with you that there is too much fat, I think it's still sequenced pretty well
Yeah.
for having those extra songs that probably don't need to be there incorporated.
Yeah. Um, I like that you bring up Fine as Can Be, the song with the Lotto feature. I think that Lotto puts together one of the best one of the best verses on the album. My favorite line is when she says, "Hit the lotto, how them niggas be doing numbers, let it blow, pop, never been a sucker." That blow, pop, lollipops, like that's crazy. I also realized that some people in the ether believe that Lotto is dissing Ice Spice just because Lotto used the word munch on this, and it was like I get that Lotto in her verse uses the word like I think she says like he's a munch, and then she says like my the money I get from shows is bigger than you or something like that. But it didn't really seem directed towards one person. It seemed like she was just like directing it at like the whole game. So
Yeah.
I don't really I feel like people who are trying to um equate that to Lotto dissing Ice Spice or just reaching and grasping at straws. I think that we've seen that when Lotto wants to diss somebody, like when she has dissed Nicki Minaj, she's more direct. And I feel like if Lotto were to diss Ice Spice, I think that she would be more direct in that as well. And additionally, I don't really see a reason for Lotto to diss Ice Spice besides the fact that unless Ice Spice declares like, "Yo, I'm on Nicki's team. Fuck everybody who doesn't like Nicki," which Ice Spice doesn't see. It doesn't seem like that's in the cards at all. I don't really see a reason to speculate around a so-called beef around basically around two women who really like in terms of the origins of the beef have nothing to do with it.
Yeah. That phrase is just part of like the lexicon, like, right? Like it's like it just like exists now. You know what I mean? It's like when I heard it, I was like, oh, okay, that's definitely like the Ice Spice line, like the most
Mhm.
famous Ice Spice line, but it didn't feel like a diss at all to me. I think like with everything, there's a lot of reaching that goes on when anything like this happens. I mean, you have anyone mention anything now relating to anybody and it's a diss now. Like it used to be like, oh, cool. Like they're like, showing respect. They're like, they're taking something because they liked it and they wanted to use it. And now it's like, oh my God. Like this is a diss track. It's like, I really don't think it's a diss
how
track.
how dare Lotto use a word that people have been using for the past year and a half at this point in a rap? Like how dare she do
Yeah.
that? Why doesn't she
But
just talk
right.
like what are we doing, guys?
Well, it's
Like
like people
really?
were trying yesterday. I saw on Twitter, people were like trying to say that like Smino made a diss track for Drake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, yo, what are we doing?
What is going on?
Like,
Like we can't just appreciate the music and just appreciate the fact that people are putting together quality verses without
and like
having to attach
little
something else
tiny
to it.
references or like little like flexes where it has something to do with that's not a diss. Like, you know what I mean? Like certain things are in a bad place.
Yeah.
The internet dialogue on a lot of stuff has like turned it so that everything is a diss record, everything is a like and people listen to this is unrelated to the opposite. People are listening to music for the drama now instead of the music. Like it used to
Mm-hmm.
be like, all right, like, if it was a diss record, it had to be good, right? It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just like, oh, you just say something like super inflammatory and then it's like, oh my God, you won. You won. It's like, you know what I mean? When Back to Back came out by Drake, it was like, oh, he's like really, really rapping. Because I
Mm-hmm.
remember when Charged Up came out before, no one cared. It was like,
Yeah.
why are we listening to this guy? And then you have famous examples like, like Take Over and Ether, but it's like, those are good records. Hit them up, very aggressive, very
Mm-hmm.
angry,
Mm-hmm.
good song. You know what I mean? So
Story of
that's
Adidon, also a good
yeah,
song.
well, exactly, and
Also
that and
direct, very direct.
very direct, and it's just taking. I mean, even Duppy Freestyle, which came before Story of Adidon, that's a good song too. Obviously, like Pusha had the nuclear bomb, like
Infrared. Yeah.
right. Yeah, so he had it, yeah, because it was Infrared, and then Drake
And
did
then
Duppy
yeah.
Freestyle, and then
Mm-hmm.
Story of Adidon. But like Story of or Duppy Freestyle is still a good song, but obviously when Pusha drops something like he did, it's gonna like dwarf that, right? And that's understandable. But yeah, I didn't think that was a diss at all. I think Lotto did have a good verse. I think the one of the first episodes you and I ever did was on 777 by Lotto.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean she raps so well. Like
She
she
does.
she really can do a whole lot. And she has the Atlanta thing down, but sometimes she like breaks off into not in this verse, but sometimes she like has some like New York kind of like feel to her. And like that's always like when she's freestyling, it's like, all right, cool. Like,
Yeah.
you really, really do this.
For sure. Going from one Atlanta artist to well, it's all Atlanta artists because Offset is also Atlanta. I needed a 21 Savage verse here. I just absolutely did. Just understanding the chemistry that those two, Offset and 21 Savage, have, understanding again how we pointed out earlier, Without Warning being one of the best collab albums that I personally have ever heard. Just understanding that chemistry, I think I just needed that here. It was really lacking in that aspect. I also think that one of my critiques for Offset in this album is I think that he could have been more vulnerable. I feel like Say My Grace, Upside Down, and Healthy seem to be really the only three tracks where he shows some real vulnerability. And just understanding that all the stuff that's going on is like between Takeoff's death, falling out, and now apparently reconciling with Quavo, and then the escalation of the Cardi B beef with Nicki Minaj and Nicki Minaj's husband basically sending shots at Offset. Like I feel like there was more room to be vulnerable here. Maybe he's not ready to talk about some of these things, but I do think that that would have taken the album to the next level.
Yeah, I agree. Um, and I kind of was expecting that a little bit, but at the same time, I think there are certain things that Offset is shown to be aware enough where it's like, all right, this isn't my like I think it would have been very poorly received if there was like a bunch of references to Takeoff.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think there would have been problems that resulted from that. And I think that getting into the Nicki Cardi stuff, like obviously it has to do with him and he's been pulled into it in a multitude of ways, especially recently. But I don't know. It's not surprising to me that he didn't touch any of that. And like he did have one reference to Takeoff. He had one reference to his grandmother passing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Both the
I was
references
glad
were
that
on
Takeoff.
Say My Grace.
Yeah, I was glad that Takeoff was mentioned because it is important. Um, but I think it would have gone over poorly if he did an album, similar to like what we just got from Quavo, where it's like a lot of it is in tribute to him. So I get it. You know what I mean? I would have liked the same thing, but I also understand why that didn't happen. And I think Healthy, which you just brought up, is a great example of him like getting right to the edge of that vulnerability and
Mm-hmm.
then being like, I'm Offset. Like, hang on, like let me just like, you know what I mean? It's like getting right there, and then being like, and that's how a lot of people are, like, in real life, where they can get really close to those subjects that hurt, and then they're like, never mind, like I'm
Mm-hmm.
good. Let me just put that to the side. But so I agree with you. I would have liked that, and I think that maybe in a couple of years' time we will get more of that because I think this is a step in that direction. But I also understand why we didn't get it, and you know, it's one of those things where it is what it is. It's difficult.
For sure. Let's talk about Broad Day. I think that's the best song on the album. I knew I was gonna like it when I first heard the snippet, and then I heard Future come in on the snippet, and I was like, okay, like these two seem to be actually in the studio together, actually making this song. The cadence and the tempo that Offset chooses to execute the hook and the verse, amazing. And then when Future starts dragging out the last line in the middle of the verse, the last syllable of each line in the middle of the verse, oh boy, oh, like
Yeah,
what are like what more could I ask for, really? What more could we
we
ask
need
for?
we need the Future album. We need the Future Metro Boomin.
Yes, we
I'm
do.
tired. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of these little features here and there. I'm tired. I want it. You know what I mean? I want that project. I was so excited. I was excited for all the dogs,
Mhm.
but we've gotten so much Drake lately, and I know Futures dropped last year, so it's not like it's been a long time. But to hear, yeah, that song, hearing that, I was like, okay, it's time.
It's definitely time. Let's see what else I have here. Really, I
What'd
mean,
you
well, go ahead.
what'd you think of the? I thought that the Travis Scott feature on "Say My Grace" was one of the first times we've heard in a long time where the song didn't really have to change
Mhm.
for
Yeah,
him to
yeah.
arrive. Like you didn't have to do that like super like cinematic like slow down and then you hear like him like the super auto tuned like him like kind of like I don't know, it's not humming necessarily, but you know what I mean, like
Mhm.
crooning a little bit, and then the song changes. I was kind of impressed just by Travis coming in, like they dropped something out of the back of it, but I was pretty impressed by that. And actually I think Offset and Travis have the best ability to rap like each other.
Yeah.
Like I think that they've mastered how to work with each other in that way where they can kind of go back and forth, and it's not, because sometimes like Drake and Travis can feel a little forced. 21 and Travis can be good, but it's not my favorite. I think that Offset and Travis have a good way of just like bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, to go off of your point, I remember the first time I heard Ghostface Killers off of Without Warning. It's a song with Offset, 21 Savage, and Travis Scott is on it as well. And I hear Offset first, I'm like, this is Travis Scott. Like
Yeah.
I remember that like at this point 6 years ago, thinking that Offset sounded like Travis Scott. So just to further crystallize your point, yeah, I do see where you're coming from with that. I do think the Hey ad lib that Offset has is among some of the best of all time. Um, I also, before we get to final thoughts, I just want to close it out by saying how much harder this line hits now that the Braves are knocked out of the playoffs. When Cardi B says, "Been to Atlanta, but bitches ain't brave." Oh boy, oh boy, line of the year. Let's go, line of the year.
Was that a diss at Orlando Arcia? Attaboy,
Oh,
Cardi.
yo. That being said, Taylor, what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts, and I kind of gave it earlier, but I think that the structure of this album, I think the foundation, I think the through lines are great. I think that Offset really showed his knowledge and his ability as a rapper, as a hip hop artist, as a musician on this project, and I'm really pleased with the product we got after not really seeing a whole lot of conversation about it when it, during the lead up to it, and not really seeing a lot of conversation about it even since it came out. So those are my final thoughts. I think it's great. I think it's great structurally. I think it has a great foundation. Like you and I both agree. There's some places that he probably could have trimmed some fat, but in 2023, you're getting that fat. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's just going to be there. My top 3 tracks are, I just mentioned it, Say My Grace with Travis Scott. I love Don't You Lie, and then Dissolve. So Say My Grace, Don't You Lie, Dissolve.
Playback value.
Playback value, for me, this is one of the ones where I need to really like with the Gunna album, where it can be so easy to just like let it go by the wayside and listen to the stuff I want to listen. Like I'd rather just listen to the same albums I've been listening to for 10 years. I want to keep coming back to this one. And so I'll give this one like 3 to 4 months for me to really, really keep coming back to it and making an honest effort to keep playing this so it doesn't fall out of my rotation. Objectively, I kind of just mentioned it. I haven't seen really any conversation about this project since it came out. So without a big song to really carry this project, because I don't see any of these songs really carrying it, I would give this maybe, I don't know, 3 weeks to a month. That could be low, could be high. I'm not sure. I guess I'll know, and we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah. My final thoughts are it's a quality album. It accomplishes the goal of showing Offset's versatility and also his potential as a solo artist. I would have liked to see him be more vulnerable throughout the album. And I do think that there's a little bit too much fat throughout the album as well. I think the first half of the album is also better than the second half of the album. My top 3 tracks, number 3, Don't You Lie. The way that Offset transitions from hook to verse, seamless.
Yep.
Finest Can Be featuring Lotto is my number 2 track, and Broad Day featuring Future is my number 1 track. Playback value, objectively, like you said, I don't really see much conversation about this album at all. So I think that it will probably last a week. Subjectively, I do see it lasting 2 weeks. That being said, this has been the Cat Podcast, episode 415. Let us know what you think about Set It Off in the comments below. Do us a favor, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at OldMilk Media, and check out all the Old Milk merch on oldmilk.co. That being said, we'll be back when hip hop tells us to be, and we are out. Thanks for watching.